Good morning, everybody. Full house today. Yes. So I'd like to call this meeting to order for the regular Board of Desert Water Agency for December 17th, 2024 at 8 o'clock in the morning. Just a little housekeeping. I ask everyone in the room to please silence their phones and other electronic devices. And for those of us that are participating virtually, ask that you keep your microphone muted until you're ready to speak. And also just to remind the public that you can participate both virtually and via in person here in the boardroom. And the instructions to attend virtually are shown on the posted agenda. I will be calling on directors in the following roll call order: Director Grasha, Director Bloomer, Secretary Treasurer McKenna, Vice President Bowman, and President Ortega. And all votes will be conducted via roll call. And with that, we'll move to the Pledge of Allegiance. And Director Bloomer, would you lead us today?
Sure.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
President Ortega, I'd like to, I don't see our Mike Riddell on the line there. I just want to make sure, is he on anywhere, Sylvia? Okay.
Right. Can we proceed without him at the moment?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. All right, so with that, we'll move to roll call. Ms. Baca, would you conduct that, please?
Director Grasha,
Present.
Director Bloomer,
Present.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Present.
and Vice President Bowman's absence is noted, and President Ortega.
Present, thank you. And it looks like we're going to rearrange the agenda slightly. With that, we will move to action item 7A, which is, I'll read it officially, Action 7A, request adoption of resolution number 1341 granting retirement status to Eddie Gonzalez. And General Manager Johnson, please.
Thank you, President Ortega, members of the board. So after 16 years of dedicated work at the agency, Eddie Gonzalez, who is our facilities and safety officer, will be retiring at the end of this month. So at this time, we would ask that President Ortega read out loud the resolution number 1341. And after that, staff is recommending that the board adopt resolution number 1341, acknowledging Mr. Gonzalez's 16 years of dedicated service to the agency.
Very well. All right. Resolution number 1341, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Desert Water Agency granting retirement status to Eddie Gonzalez. Whereas Edward Eddie Gonzalez began his service with Desert Water Agency on April 28, 2008 as a Programmer 1 in the Information Systems Department and was promoted to Facilities and Safety Officer on October 14, 2013, and is concluding his career in that capacity. And whereas over his career with the agency, Eddie has conducted 120 safety meetings, 27 first aid, CPR, AED classes, and over 1,632 man-hours of training. And whereas Eddie established and implemented and developed the agency's lone worker program, known as Solo Protect System, crisis communication protocols, situational awareness strategies and response drills, and workplace violence prevention planning. And whereas Eddie established the annual Confined Space Rescue Joint Training exercises with the Desert Water Agency, Palm Springs Fire Department, Palm Springs Mounted Police Rescue, and the National Safety Services Incorporated. And whereas Eddie commissioned the design, equipping, and purchase of the agency's first confined space entry rescue trailer, and coordinated and implemented the new Bluetooth-capable MSA atmospheric monitor upgrades throughout confined spaces located within the agency's work areas. And whereas Eddie greatly reduced the number of heat-related injuries to staff by implementing monthly training on heat injury illness prevention and daily distribution of electrolytes during hot months, and introduced the Cool Shirt Core Temperature Recovery System to field staff. And whereas Eddie implemented safety systems such as dash and rear cameras on all agency fleet vehicles, the MSA Wind Grip Vacuum Anchor Portable Fall Protection System for use on top of agency reservoirs and automatic valve turners. And whereas Eddie coordinated and supervised the boardroom and board conference room multimedia modernization project. And whereas Eddie established the agency's communication screen system for disseminating important information to employees in the employee break room and the construction department. And whereas Eddie served as a volunteer member on JPIA's Risk Management Committee from January 2021 to present. And whereas the Desert Water Agency is deeply appreciative of the exceptional fine service that Mr. Gonzalez has provided, and for the labors both seen and unseen on its behalf. And whereas Eddie has consistently performed his duties meticulously and with commitment to the highest standards required in conjunction with the responsibilities fulfilled, and has done so with the agency and its employees' best interest in mind. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Desert Water Agency Board of Directors that Eddie Gonzalez is with infinite thanks and appreciation for his 16 years of service to the Desert Water Agency and our community, hereby granted the status of retirement. It is the wish of the board that Eddie spends countless hours enjoying a happy and healthy retirement, for he has earned it. Adopted this 17th day of December 2024 with retirement effective December 30th, 2024. That's a lot. Thank you. So at this time, I'll look to our board members to make comments if they like. Mr. or
Well,
Director Gracia.
I'd just like to acknowledge, I think Eddie was the first person I met when I walked in the door here for the first time. And every interaction that I've had, I could see the professionalism and his loyalty to this agency. And by reading the list that you just read off, I can tell you that we got our money's worth. We're very grateful for your dedication to the agency and to this community. And I hope you have a great retirement and are very successful in the work that you're about to undertake in your future. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Bloomer.
Thank you very much for your all of your years of service, and congratulations on your most recent award from JPIA. That was excellent to see at that meeting, and wish you the best of luck in retirement, and hopefully you get to go travel around and do some fun things.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
I think people with this list of skills and expertise and experience shouldn't be allowed to retire. But until the 14th Amendment is repealed, we're going to have to let it happen. I knew of 2 or 3 of the things on this list, but it's an impressive list, and I'm very, very grateful for the efforts you put into safety. Safety is huge with me, and we don't get a chance to acknowledge it often enough. So I appreciate the work you did. I hope you have a great retirement. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't know that I have much to add to that, but other than to sort of echo what Secretary Treasurer McKenna just said about safety and the impressive record that this agency has with regard to safety, and as recently even acknowledged by JPIA. And I think that says a lot about the work that you've been doing here for the last 16 years, I guess. So with that, I will look for a motion from the board.
Move the staff recommendation.
Okay, I'll have a first from Director Gracia,
I'll second.
a second from Director Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez, do you have anything to add to that? Would you like to come forward?
Right. If you, I'm just Mr. President and members of the board, I want to first say thank you very much for this resolution, but also thank you very much for the opportunity to serve. It's in my heart to help people, and I find it a daily blessing and a joy to come to work, to be able to work with such a fine group of people. Over the past 16 years, I've developed friendships and very good relationships with people that understand the mission overall. And I can't say thank you enough to all of my friends and coworkers who have made these past 16 years a joy and a pleasure for me. I'm really hoping that from this day forward, and anyone that takes on or comes to work at Desert Water will be able to benefit from everything that we've all worked together for. The agency is a family. It really is. It's a team of people that work together and get it. And I would hope that you would see that in whatever you are bringing to us, that you always consider us as a unit, as a family, and remember us that we're out there in the streets doing the work. As you guys seen on the way to work today, I was coming in, and they had some amazingly beautiful traffic control going up. I'm always impressed. I'm always impressed by just what a great job our teams do, from our front staff all the way to the guys in the operations and everyone out there in the fleet, handling fleet maintenance, and then, of course, all of our management team. You guys are excellent, and I encourage every one of you to be excellent to each other. Treat each other with dignity and respect. Everybody is somebody's mom or dad or son or husband or father. And we all come to work here for our families, but we spend most of our time here with each other. So I want to say thank you again. Thanks to my family for being here. My mom. Thanks, Mom, for all the prayers and the kicks in the rear end to do the right thing. And my family is, it means they mean the world to me. And I'm grateful that the love they poured into me. I love every one of you guys, and all that you guys are doing really matters to me. So keep up the great work. And I covered all of your prayers. If anybody knows how to pray, I have a big job ahead of me. I'm looking forward to my pastoral ministry that God has called me to. I just want to keep on helping people. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you.
So Eddie, we have the resolution for you framed here for you. And what we'd like to do is have you take some photos here with the board real quick. And if you want your family to, you can have them too.
Yeah, I was just waiting for everyone. Yeah, that's perfect. And if everyone can just take kind of a tiny tilt this way towards me. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Just trying to avoid the podium. Okay, here we go. Ready?
You guys will just stay right there. Come on in, you guys.
One more, everyone.
Congratulations, Eddie.
All right. That's a great way to start a meeting. So item number 4 would be public comment on items not on today's agenda. This is now time for members of the public to comment on things that are related to the business of the Desert Water Agency, but not necessarily on today's agenda. As provided in the Brown Act, the board is prohibited from acting on items not listed on the agenda. Ms. Baca, have we received any public comment?
No comments have been received so far.
Okay. Are there members of the public who would like to speak on an item not on today's agenda? Seeing none, we will move to item 5, public comment on items listed on today's agenda. And now is the time for public comment on items that are listed on today's agenda. We request that members of the public who would like to participate keep their comments to no more than 3 minutes. Have we received any public comments for today's agenda?
No, I have not.
Okay, thank you. Do we have members of the public that would like to speak at this time? Seeing none, we can move to item 6, which is the consent calendar. Items listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by one motion of the board without discussion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a board member requests a specific item to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Do either of the directors have items on the consent calendar today that they would like to discuss separately? No? All right, so we can, I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Okay, thank you. I have a first from Director Bloomer. I'll look for a second.
Second.
All right, thank you, Director Gracia. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. All right, moving along, we can move to 7B, which is request board action on customer appeal, Steve Remball. And we will start with a staff report and from Assistant General Manager Mr. Tate, and then we will move to questions from the board for staff, and then we can move to give Mr. Remball some time to talk about his appeal. With that, we'll start with Mr. Tate. Thank you.
Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. Today I have an action item for a customer appeal for Mr. Steve Remball. In 2019, the Board of Directors adopted resolution number 1224 for a policy for discontinuation of residential water service for non-payment. The resolution is in accordance with Senate Bill 998, which imposes new and expanded customer service protections for the discontinuation of residential water service for non-payment. The resolution addresses procedures for a customer to contest or appeal a bill. The customer is allowed to request an investigation into the water bill and appeal the results of the investigation to the Board of Directors. The decision of the Board of Directors shall be final. Per the resolution, we have scheduled this action before the Board of Directors. The appellant, Mr. Remball, is requesting a new meter be installed at his property and a credit for his October 2024 bill. See attachment 1. The October 2024 consumption measured at his property was 179 units. The average October consumption for this property is 39 units. If we use the average October, that will result in a credit of 140 units at a value of $341.60. To replace the meter would cost $46.25. The total request is $687.85. Mr. Remble is requesting relief due to water pressure fluctuations that he believes are influencing the meter read, causing leaks on his private plumbing, and have caused a crack in the concrete that surrounds the meter box. A summary of the actions taken and supporting information. On 10/28, the meter read was collected. On 10/29, a physical reread was collected due to high consumption. During the reread, the consumption returned to normal. On 11/14, Mr. Remball visited DWA's office and stated that he did not receive his bill, that this was the second time this has happened, and both are associated with high consumption. An account clerk asked if Mr. Remball would like to pay the bill and informed him of the total due, not addressing why he did not receive the bill. Mr. Remball asked to speak to the accounting supervisor. After speaking with the accounting supervisor, Mr. Remball then met with our field services administrative assistant to discuss the high consumption. Mr. Remball was not satisfied with the administrative assistant's answer, so he met with our field services supervisor and arranged a field meeting. On 10/15, the field services supervisor met with Mr. Remball at his property to check the meter read and show Mr. Remball the data log from the meter, which indicates an increase in consumption that occurred during an approximately 2-week period. After a brief inspection of the property, the field services supervisor noticed an irrigation valve that appeared to be leaking slowly, and the soil around the plants in the front landscaping showed signs of overwatering, which could be consistent with a daily high consumption trend showed in the graph. Mr. Remball then pointed out a crack in the sidewalk around the meter box that DWA has repaired in the past. Mr. Remball stated that the pressure from the ground shifting may be the culprit in the high bill. The field services supervisor offers to have someone from our engineering department contact him to discuss the system, infrastructure, and pressures. The static water pressure in that area is 55 PSI, plus or minus 10 PSI, which is very good, is average pressure for our system. On 11/18, Mr. Remball filed a dispute online. An engineering tech called Mr. Remball to discuss his concern regarding the pressure and past plumbing issues, indicating that the toilet valve in the pool autofill had been replaced. On 11/19, field services supervisor contacted Mr. Remball to arrange a meter test. Mr. Remball has offered a DWA bench test at the operations center or a field test at his property. Mr. Remball selected the field test and scheduled the test for noon the next day. On 11/20, a field test is performed at the property with Mr. Remball present. The meter passed the field test with 100% accuracy with a static pressure reading of 62 PSI. After the test, Mr. Remball tells the agency field services supervisor, that he feels that if the meter is slapped on the side, the meter dial moves and demonstrates by slapping the meter. Mr. Remball claims that the pressure issues may be causing inaccuracies with the meter. On 11/25, field services supervisor emails and mails a dispute denial letter to Mr. Remball. On 11/26, Mr. Remball files the appeal to the Board of Directors. A summary of the fiscal impacts. If the board decides to deny the appeal, there will be no fiscal impact. If the board decides to had a double sentence there. If the board, if the board decides to grant the appeal, the agency may credit the account for up to $687.85. Based on the initial meter read, the manual reread, the field test that demonstrated the accuracy of the meter, and the daily consumption graph that shows the days the water was consumed and exactly how much, staff recommends the board deny Mr. Remball's appeal for credit to his account and to deny the replacement of the meter. In addition, crediting the customer's bill would in essence transfer his bill and his consumption to other agency customers that did not consume the water. Thank you for your time. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. Director Grasha, do you have any questions?
The amount of money that, $686, I think, that includes the cost to replace the meter. So the actual water adjustment would be, what, about $300?
That is correct.
Right. And there's no sign at all of the meter having difficulty.
No, it was proved accurate during the test, the field test.
I heard all I need.
Thank you. Director Bloomer?
That was going to be my only question. So I think I have everything I need as far as, was when you went back to do the field test, did you notice if the irrigation valve was still leaking or that happened at the same time?
Garrett Nelson, the field service supervisor, could answer that.
It was not rechecked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right, anything else? No? Okay, Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
Could you address that issue of tapping the meter causing the dials to move? Can you explain what that might be?
I think Mr. Garrett might want to stay at the podium for a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I believe when he was tapping the meter, his intent was to show that the dial would slowly turn under some sort of pressure being applied to the meter body itself.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Okay, thanks.
To follow up on that then, so what was the actual observation when that happened?
There's a little blue tattletale on the meter that it shows anytime any water's flowing through it.
Mm-hmm.
It was tapping that. It did jiggle and move quite a bit. Not enough to where it would register that kind of consumption.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What's that?
And did it stop then? Did it stop moving after that?
Yeah, as soon as
Okay.
It was only the impulse of him
as
striking the meter that caused water to slush back and forth in the meter for a second. That tattletale measures very small incremental. It can measure drips of flowing.
Okay. All right. When we go back to, there were a couple of comments toward the beginning of your summary that I'd like to go back to. I think they're at the beginning. There was something about, and I'm not seeing it on the screen directly, but my recollection is that there was something about a bill had not been received, and this was the second time this happened, and it was also during a time of high consumption. What do we know about that? This other bill that's not the question here, but this alleged other bill that was not received and had high consumption that he's referring to.
If I may invite our accounting supervisor, Jason Slough, up to discuss his conversations regarding the billing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think at the time when we initially had the discussion about not getting the bills, I wasn't aware that the original one that he didn't receive was a high consumption. We were only dealing with the one that he came in to pay or to get the bill for that day, and that happened to be a high consumption. And so that's when I brought in the field service rep to help him deal with that.
So we don't know anything more about this other bill that's talked about in the summary?
The very first one, no.
Okay.
And if I may add to that, so when our representatives speak with people and they do not have did not receive their bill, From time to time, it is infrequent in occurrence. Customers do not receive their bill, and our assumption is that it is an issue with the postal service. However, when they do, it is a common practice of ours to offer them enrollment into our online bill pay, so that even if they are not receiving a bill through the postal service through some sort of ongoing issue, which we've encountered before. A couple years ago, we had a customer who frequently did not receive their bill. So enrolling in the online bill pay does seem to resolve that issue, and that is typically offered.
So if Mr. Remball did not receive his bill, how did he know that there was an issue of high consumption? Or do we know why?
Well, when he came in and I spoke with him, I got him a copy of the bill. And then that's when we realized it was
There
high.
was a reason for him to come into the office in the first place. Am I missing something?
Right, he had not received the bill, so yeah.
Okay, he came in because he had not received the bill.
Correct.
That was the sole reason that we, as we know it. And then upon receiving the bill, producing the bill, is when that issue of the
Yeah,
high
that's
consumption
when we
became
noticed that
visible.
it was
Okay,
high consumption.
thank you. Is this this may have been a part of your report, and I might have missed it, Mr. Tate, but there was, and maybe we can go to the graph. There's this graph of the daily consumption. Yeah, I think that's it. So this is a reading for each day. Is that right? Yeah, the type is kind of hard for me to read. So.
Correct. It was hard to fit it into the.
Yeah, I get that.
So what that shows is going from left to right is 12 units, 10 units, 11 units, 19 units at spike. And then on Saturday, 10, 12, it dropped down to 4 units, which is that dip. That's what indicates that it's an irrigation leak because it was intermittent on and off. Then the day after on Sunday, 11 or 10/13, it was 20 units, 18 units, back down to 10 units, up to 18 units, 8 units, 10 units, 3 units, and then by 10/20, he had corrected whatever issue was going on, and his consumption returns to normal that day.
Okay, so basically that more or less flat line that we see after that point would be considered regular consumption, daily
Correct.
consumption
He
based
used
on
about 30
history.
units a month, so about a 1 unit a day.
Mm-hmm.
And those days that you can see there that are high, that totals 143 units right there if you add all those days up.
Okay.
So we don't have to the left of that anything prior to 10/8, so we don't know, but that is the bulk of the overconsumption there during that 2-week period.
And why don't we have anything before 10/8?
So this is a new system, the Temetra system, and we've recently installed it.
Yes, it's a new system, and when we go and we pull a read, we can only get 40 days worth. But in the future, we will be cataloging that going forward. So
Is this part of our AMI program? Okay. So in the future, conceivably, a customer like Mr. Remball who was experiencing these fluctuations would be possibly notified through email or text or some way that this was occurring.
That is a future rendition of the program where we will be able to expand those capabilities,
Okay.
yes.
Because even with the very first reading, it's still quite high, the water consumption. So conceivably, it was happening before that.
Yep.
And it looks like it's on slightly downward trend, which would fit into these waves that we see of going up and down. So again, it's hard for me to read the days across, but it looks like we have a day up and the day down, and then a day up and then a day down kind of pattern, sort of.
I would my estimate would that be irrigation because it's not consistent. It wasn't consistent leak.
Mm-hmm.
It was, whatever his cycle is. Days of the week, certain days of the week, maybe as every 3 days is drips coming on or.
Okay. All right, but again, that's an assumption. We don't know that that's actually what happened. All right, are there any other questions from board members at this point before we move to Mr. Remball? No? Okay. All right, sir. Before we get started, welcome. And we...
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So welcome to Desert Water Agency's Board of Directors meeting. We'll be talking about your appeal in a moment. Just so you know, members of the board have read the entire staff report, including the documentation that was presented, some of which I think was provided by you, some provided by staff. So I'd appreciate it if we could kind of keep this brief, but if you might elaborate on some things where you felt that weren't included in the staff report. I presume you had a chance to look at the staff report with the documentation?
Are you trying to cut me off from what I have to say?
No, I'm trying to
I
just trying to set
I
some.
have a lot to say.
I'm
Mr.
sure you
Baker.
do.
Very nice. You've been very kind. Eddie was a wonderful employee. I mean, tremendous. I've listened to you. I think that your board seems to be wanting to get rid of this right away. Mr. Grassa didn't ask enough questions. You talked about the post office. I have things here I would like you to know that you should know for the DWA to run properly, and information that I found out.
Is this relevant to your appeal, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it's not relevant to your appeal, I'm going to ask you to speed it up. Okay? Please go ahead.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to take my time, sir. Since this is going to be my final appeal, because there's some things that you should know, okay? First of all, the post office issue. Okay? I'm glad you brought that up. I wasn't going to bring it up, but it's important enough because I never received the bill. I've lived in my home since 1979. I've never not received a water bill every single month. So, to address this lady that mentioned something about
Our
the
finance
post office-
director, sir.
the
Our
post
finance
office
director. She's not
problem.
just a lady. Thank you.
I don't know her name, but whatever it was, you didn't say it. So she said something about the post office responsibility, which of course I have a PO box, and I went down to the post office. But not only that, I have a special delivery on my mail. I don't know that if you know this, but there is such a service that photographs every single piece of mail.
Yes, it's named informed delivery. I'm aware of it.
Thank you, sir. And I have that. And there was never anything mailed to that box. So it wasn't because of somebody not putting it in the right box or because of getting lost. It was never mailed. And at that meeting that I had that one day, and you're telling me to do all of this, your information basically that was done from your field office was done all in one day. I've had some time to go over this, talk to people, talk to the state of California Weights and Measures, talk to Coachella Valley Water District. I've talked to a lot of people about, things. I've investigated this. I've been in this home since 1979, sir.
You've told us that, sir.
I've never had a bill like this. The total bill was $475.08. So this was supposedly 133,892 gallons of water in 10 days. That's 13 swimming pools of water, sir. And if you saw the pictures that Mr. Nelson provided to you, I won your award for the front grass removal program for having the best architecture and the best design for my front yard when I did that many years ago, 5 years, 6, 7, 8, I don't remember how many years. But we put a waterproof barrier between the top and the bottom soil. So if there is any kind of water leak on top, it would have shown. I have a barrier, and it's in the pictures there, that black barrier.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Nelson, you're telling me to be quick about everything, but I'm sorry, sir. I really am. I can't.
Apparently not.
Mr. Nelson has misrepresented. My plants are not dying from overwatering. Actually, if any of my plants look bad, it's because they were underwatered. We underwater. We don't overwater. I live in my home 365 days a year. I don't go anywhere. I don't travel. I never left my residence. I wasn't gone. I'm never gone. And I certainly wasn't gone during this time period at all. never noticed 135,000 gallons of water passing through my meter. Now, we'd like to address some of these other concerns that you don't know about. The test that was performed, that Mr. Nelson performed, is a 7.48 gallon test. He comes over the house with a metal tank, which you have a partial picture of, that's from his pickup truck, that's been bounced around, dented, and who knows what kind of caliber is on that, whether it's actually 7.48 or not. But you're judging my meter with 7.48 gallons of test against 133,000 gallons of water that supposedly passed through this meter. And the percentage of that test is so incrementally small that it doesn't make a tiny, tiny, tiny difference. If it showed anything, which it does, if you look at your pictures, it actually does show an incorrect movement. It does show an irregularity in the amount that Mr. Nelson said went through at 7.48, but he claims it's 100% accurate. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm an argumentative person, sir. I mean, I think you may think I have that attitude because you try to cut me off and you want me to make this quick. And I hope there's an attorney listening to this because I think
There is. We have counsel online.
I hope you do.
Oh, we
Because
always do, sir.
This is not going to stop at this point. And I want you to understand that I'm not going to be threatened, and I'm not
I
going to
wasn't
be
threatening you, sir.
But let me tell you that I contacted the state of California Weights and Measures. I spoke to the gentleman in Riverside County that does the meter checking for Riverside Agricultural Department. They use a method of testing with a device that they take the meter off. They take the test from the meter on a certified meter that's certified by the state of California and certified by the federal government with stamps on it. They use a 500-gallon cup test to test the meters when they test them. Any meter that is 10 years or older, they don't test, they replace. To them, a 10-year-old meter is garbage. They won't use it if it's after 10 years. My meter is 10 years old. You took the possession of that meter in I have the dates. I'd rather read this from my list, but you've had that meter for almost 10 years. That's when you purchased it, but it had been sitting possibly on a shelf in a warehouse for who knows how long. So the meter is over 10 years old.
Speculation.
It's not speculation,
It is.
sir. It's not speculation. If you purchase the meter in 9 years, it had to have been manufactured, it had to be produced, it had to be put somewhere to be able to be delivered to you. You didn't receive it the day that meter was made. So it's not something that you think it is. I'll tell you what. I'm going to read this to you so everybody there knows, including Mr. Gracia. Because I spoke to the city engineer after I spoke to Mr. Nelson about all this. And that graph that you're looking at, that the lady that spoke said that, or whoever spoke, that's the only graph. That isn't, because Mr. Nelson gave me a totally different graph. He showed me a graph that precedes those ups and downs of 2 weeks prior, because they can go somewhere to 6 weeks out. So he had 2 weeks prior, and there was no usage, very little usage. And then he hits where you see the up, which was reported to you correctly by whoever read it, that on the 8th of October, it jumped up, it went to 12, it went on the 9th to 10, on the 10th of October, it went to 11, on the 11th of October, there was 19, on the 12th, it was 4, on the 13th, it was 20, on the 14th, it was 18th, on the 15th, it was 10, on the 16th, it was 18th, on the 17th, it was 8, on the 18th, it was 10, and then on the 19th, it went back down. So in 10 days, I supposedly had through that meter 100 and some odd thousand gallons of water, not including, of course, the other gallons that came before and after. But still, everybody I've talked to the manufacturer at Badger. I talked to the Coachella Valley Water District people. They cannot believe, nobody could believe that 135,000 gallons of water came through that meter onto my property. As a matter of fact, the field representative for Badger said I would have sinkholes on my property. Now, I spoke to the engineer, your city engineer there, your not the city, but the water engineer. I can't remember his name. It was Pedro or Jose, or I'm not quite sure. And he said, well, you know, everything, our infrastructure is all built in based on our water pressure and pipes are all based on your infrastructure, and everything is sized properly. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Gracia has some kind of a construction background, and maybe he knows a little bit about that engineering types of stuff, how pipes are figured out, and water sizes are figured out. But I don't know if you saw it in your report that my next door neighbor has the normal sized house, which would have been a 3-bedroom house, enlarged to twice the size. He has a 5-bedroom, not a 2-bath house like every other house in our neighborhood of 60 homes. He has 4 or 5 baths, and he's running a hotel right next door. Every week, he has 5 cars pulled into he has 3 cars in his driveway, 1 across the street, and 1 in front of my house. 5 cars with usually 2 people in each car. So that gentleman that owns that house, and the people are quiet, but every week for the last year, he's been running it as a hotel. I don't know how many other homes on my street, 5 or 6 other homes are used as a Airbnb. These houses weren't engineered for this kind of usage, water usage. I don't know if you realize that when I explained that to your engineer, you know, because he's telling me all of everything is engineered according to the way these houses were built, but they're not used and they're not the same. So, in order for me to present this properly, I need you to hear some things from me as far as my meeting there at your office. I met with Giovanna, who explained to me about me not receiving my bill. She mentioned to me that when there's a high bill, sometimes the bill is pulled to look at it. I don't understand if that's what happened or if that's the case. But I said, so what happened to my bill? She said, well, I would be normally the one that would take care of it, but yesterday was my first day. In other words, the person who was responsible for my bill is no longer working for Desert Water Agency, as far as she was telling me, that this was her first day, which was the day that I came into the office. Now, when I came into the office, I had not received the bill, which I have received the bill every single month since 1979. Now, when I didn't receive the bill, I went in there to get the copy of the bill, period. That's all I wanted. When I got to the window, the lady came back up from her chair. She walked to the window. She said, what would you like? I said, I need a copy of my bill. I did not get one. She went to her computer. She brought it up on her computer. I thought she was going to print it and give it to me. Instead of printing it and giving it to me, she said, are you going to pay your bill now? And I said, I haven't received it. Can you please give me my bill so I know how much it is? Maybe I will. I don't know. So there became a discussion about that. She didn't give it to me. She wouldn't give it to me. So that's when I had this conversation with the gentleman. I think his first name is Jason. I'm not sure, but he's in charge of the clerks there, I guess. And we met in a private little room. And he started explaining to me about the billing and what happened with her, and he apologized. I said, well, you know, I understand a lot of people probably come in here with their bill and they want to pay and they pay. But I wasn't here to that. I was here to get my bill. So he said, well, okay, you know, and he said, I apologize and we'll get that all straightened out. That was fine. But After that, I said, I want to find a $400 bill. I mean, that blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. So he went, he got me the copy of the bill. That's when I looked at it for the very first time. I was amazed. That's when I asked for some other people to come in the office. I sat there for at least an hour waiting. People came in. Giovanni came in. She spoke to me about why I didn't get the bill, that she really didn't understand because today was her first day or yesterday was her first day. Whatever happened, sorry. Then I asked to talk about, well, how could this be? I mean, how could I possibly have used that much water? Then another gentleman came in, and I don't know if that was Mr. Nelson at that time that came in or who, somebody else explained to me, showed me the meter. There's a cross section of a meter that's cut in half. The guts of the meter, the gears are plastic, although the meter itself is brass and it looks like a beautiful solid brass piece of machinery. It's not. The middle of that meter is plastic. And so, I said, well, this doesn't right. We need to have a test. And, I have 6 pages of things to read here, and I don't want to read them to you because you want me to go quick on this, but I'm going to tell you, all of the water lines in our street were replaced. They did a beautiful job. I actually recorded it. It was a magnificent operation how they replaced every single water line in our street to every single house. They did that a couple of years ago. They did not replace the meters. I don't know what went through those water lines when they replaced them and put new water lines in. I don't know what happened with the meter, which they had to disconnect it in order to put all these new water lines in. So I don't know what took place with my meter, but I'll tell you, since I've been here, they've replaced the box, the cement box that my meter sits in 4 times. You have in your evidence there, you have the meter that's there with the box, and you'll see a crack that's running through it. The last time they poured that box, your man that did that stood there in front, and he told me, he said, Mr. Rimbaud, this is going to be the last time you will ever have your box cracked. I am going to pour a special box on you that will never crack. It will not crack. Well, as you can see, that's not correct. There's a crack there. And it's a severe crack. And there has to be a lot of shaking to make a crack like that. Now, what was given to you so far as evidence by your employees stating that I slapped the meter. I didn't slap the meter. When Mr. Nelson was doing his test after he got done, which does in fact show an irregularity, he says it's 100%, but if you look at his test and you see the dials, you'll see that there's more of a movement than what he's claiming is a 100% accurate test. That was his test. After he did the test, I was there with him watching, and I knelt down and I tapped it with my knuckle. I just tapped it with my knuckle, and it moved almost a full 1/10. Not just a little bit, a lot. And on a 7-gallon test, compared to 135,000 gallons, my little knuckle movement means a lot. So, the way you guys reported this and your summaries and your cover-ups is just not correct. And I got to go on and talk a little bit about Coachella Valley Water District. They do a test, and they use 100 gallons to test. They actually do 3 flows. They do a moderate flow, they do a slow flow, and they do a quick flow test. And they use 100 gallons to test their meters. As far as what it is that I'm asking for, not only am I asking for a meter replacement, because talking to Badger and talking to their field people, they suggest that I get a register and transmitter replacement. I think that that is also possibly part of the problem, that the transmitter and the register, according to their field supervisor that tests meters and goes out and does inspections of their meters for Badger, she spoke to me about this and she said, you should get all of those things replaced. You should ask for the register. As far as the transmitter, I don't know the difference between a register and a transmitter and the meter itself. I'm just telling you what she told me I should be asking for. That meter is 10 years old. You've had it for over 9, or I've had it in the ground for over 9, and it should be replaced. And I should get a credit. And I've already made a payment of what my average bill was. I did not disregard my bill. I set a $135 payment in because I knew I used water. I'm not trying to get away, and I'm not trying to cheat anybody for anything. I sent that money in, and I expect to pay that amount or somewhere near that amount or whatever it is, close to whatever you say my average bill. But your people can figure all this out. I did not, when Mr. Nelson comes and he says I had a leaking valve, I did not have a leaking valve, and I do not have he did not. I showed him my valves. There wasn't any leaking valve. There wasn't leaking anything. And for him to say that my plants are dying from overwatering, he's not a horticulturist. He is, come and look at my plants. They're actually dying for lack of water. You can't kill a plant if you're gonna put 135,000 gallons of water on someone's property for 10 days. That doesn't kill a plant. I have these drought plants, these beautiful plants I've had here in the ground for 10 years. If you're going to put that kind of water on there, it's not going to overwater them. And you can look at my water bills and look at my timer, which is your timer that you put in my house, and the timing that I have, and I've had for the last 20 years, since that timer's been there, 10 years. These are accurate, prior to this, accurate bills. Now, I did have some influx when you asked about. In your report says something about my toilet. That was a year ago. I had to change my guts in one of my toilets because 3 o'clock in the morning, when I was getting woken up, I could hear my toilet flushing itself out of nowhere. So I said, something's wrong. I mean, how does your toilet flush itself at 3 o'clock in the morning? So I called my plumber up and he said, you have good toilets. You bought the low flow toilets. These are the best ones you can buy. They're double flushers, even though they're low flow. And he said, but the guts that they put in there, they're good, but you should replace them. So he said, I'm going to put Rolls-Royce valves inside your toilets and you'll never hear them flush again. And he did that a year ago. I have replaced my automatic water for my swimming pool, which I noticed it was running quite a lot. And I went out because I always check my backyard. I always go out my backyard. I have a swimming pool. I used to have a swimming pool contractor's license. I know a lot about swimming pools. And I replaced the valve as soon as I noticed it wasn't working. It's like a toilet float. It's not a big deal. They do wear out over time. I replaced it. So that changed, lowered it a little bit. There was just a little bit that it was going up and down. So I do these things. As far as my swimming pool is concerned, I've had it here for 15, 20 years. My children grew up here in the house. I lived here in this community since 1965. I've owned real estate here. I take care of property. I manage property. I'm a responsible human being and person. And I dug into all of this, and I'm not going to read you this 6 pages because there's a lot of things in here that I didn't even talk to you about. But I assure you, there wasn't 135,000 gallons that I used of water. There's no way. It's impossible. And everybody that I've talked to said, you couldn't have had it. All the people in the water business in the district said, that's impossible, Mr. Rumble, to have 10 days, 135,000 gallons of water, or 130,000 gallons of water, or whatever the difference is between what my normal usage would be and this ridiculous amount of water. And your 7.48 gallon test does not hold up. The Badger people said they would do an RMA test If you want to test the meter, they'll do one. It's an RMA. I've talked to a lot of professional people about this, and I've got a lot of stuff technically that I could talk to you about. I also want to finish with, Badger suggested that I get an ion meter. Evidently, Coachella Valley Water Agency has 3 types of meters, and they can give you an ion meter. I'm glad you actually mentioned it with your discussion to your people, because the lady that spoke about it would be nice if I could actually see what's going on with my meter. I had no idea this water passed through supposedly my meter or passed through on my property. If in fact it did, I mean, wouldn't it have been nice to be able to see something like this going on if it was? I'm here every day. I'm on my property every day. I'm in my backyard with my dog picking up his mess. I would have seen water coming out of my pipes. Nothing. I saw nothing at all. And this is amazing. So you have in my report there that you sent me some redacted information. I certainly, if this gets to become a legal issue, want to see what's redacted as far as that report's concerned. And I don't know if you know, Mr. Grasha would like to ask me some questions, or anybody else, since I've given you some testimony that you might not have known about. I believe I pretty much handled the main things I wanted to talk to you about, but I would really like to have a new meter, a new register, a new transmitter. I'd like to have the ability to have ION, so that I can do as of the date that I want to see at that time, to see what's actually going on with my meter and what's happening. And the crack in my concrete certainly tells you a story. This is be the 4th time. So they've had to replace this. The cracks got so bad, you know, and there's evidently a lot of movement where I live. These streets that were built, they imported the dirt. They brought it in and they stacked up each street behind me higher and higher with imported dirt. So there's a lot of movement in the street and with your water lines. And the pressure, your static pressure, I don't believe is a completely accurate story. And I have other evidence that I have on film to back all that up, as far as if we get into any of that kind of stuff is concerned. So anything you want to ask me, I'm open for, but I guess I've taken too much of your time already.
Thank you for your testimony, if we can call it that. I don't think it has a legal term in that regard, but our counsel could correct me if that's the case. But yes, now is the time for our directors to move to questions. So with that, Director Grasha.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One, the photographs that are in the staff report, what's the genesis of those? Did we take those?
Those were
Yes,
taken.
those are not mine.
Sir, he was
Oh, I
addressing the
thought he was
question to our
asking
general
me.
manager.
Sorry.
Thank
I thought he
you.
was asking me.
Those photos were taken by Garrett Nelson, the field services supervisor.
Thank you. And we went through this, I think, the last time we had this, and I just did quick math based on my own experience in measuring flow, and it was more rudimentary than what we have here. Filling up a Home Depot bucket, I measured 11 gallons a minute flow out of a typical Palm Springs. So that's 660 gallons an hour, right? Or about. Just doing the math real quick on the that's 158,000 gallons in 10 days. I just want to make sure I had my math right. It's not that it's impossible to run that much water through one broken valve.
So I ran the numbers on that. At 15 gallons a minute, that was 6,981 minutes. And in over 14 days, that's like 500 minutes a day that it ran. Which, if it was a long irrigation cycle, maybe a drip cycle that went on for an hour or two, it appears that in one of the photos that there's some recent plumbing repairs to his valve. If there was
No.
the backside of an irrigation valve that was snapped off or broken for a
No.
long drip cycle. that
Sir,
ran for multiple
sir,
days.
you've had your opportunity. We're moving on to questions. Thank you. When a question is addressed to you, we'll ask you to participate. Thank you.
If you look at photo number 2, yeah, that one there, it looks like the glue is really new there. This is, I'm speculating,
Of course you are.
right? I mean, I don't know what's happened in this house. The back side of the valve, look, the glue looks very new there. If that was broken and you had a long irrigation cycle, which a lot of drip has long dripping, slow irrigation, and that was broken and ran straight for 4 hours, 5 hours a day, yes, I would do it.
Okay, thank you. Director Grasha, do you have any questions for Mr. Rumball?
No.
Okay, thank you. What about Director Bloomer? Do you have questions for staff or Mr. Rumball?
Why don't you ask me if I replaced that valve or not, Mr.
I was
Grassi?
just going to,
Yeah.
when was the last time you did any work on these
Those-
valves?
That valve was replaced about a year, maybe a year and a half ago. And as a matter of fact, I've talked to my gardener that takes care of my valves, and I told him, I said, I just paid a lot of money to have a lot of landscaping taken back. I said, I need to have my valves completely replaced. So I intend to replace them. If I had just replaced these valves, like you're saying, I wouldn't be replacing them again. But these valves are probably about, I would say 5 years. Well, that one valve you're talking about was replaced about a year and a half ago. The other valves are probably more like, I don't know, they're more than 5 years, maybe 6, 7 years. But your time clock was replaced about, I think about the same time, or maybe just after I replaced the valves and put your new time clock, or the one that was special for rain that shuts it off automatically if it rains, which I shut off manually anyhow, just to make sure in case it doesn't shut it off. I'm very careful, very, very careful. I'm on a, I'm semi-retired and I'm on a very fixed, budget where I have to be careful about everything, my medications, my food, everything. So, I mean, for what you just said, that valve, if it was broke and the water was coming out of there, I would have a flood.
Sir, can we let Director Bloomer continue?
I'm sorry.
Thank
So
you.
my other, well, it's more of a comment. I know at my own house, our water bill was like triple the amount for like 3 months in a row. We couldn't figure it out because there was a PVC irrigation pipe broken about 3 feet or 2 feet under the soil. So the soil was just constantly wet, not like flooding, but that's what caused it. So I don't know if that could be the case somewhere, if it's that far underground, then
No,
you wouldn't
I'll
really notice it.
testify. I'll testify in a stack of Bibles.
Thank you,
There's
sir.
nothing
Thank you.
like-
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have any more questions for staff or?
So, another question for Mr. Rimbal. So you didn't do anything to you didn't touch or
Nothing.
modify any of your
Nothing.
irrigation at that time during
Nothing.
October
Swear to God.
or the
I did
end,
not- I was totally
once you got
amazed.
the high bill?
I didn't get the high bill until I walked in that office.
Well, I realize that, but then after that,
I haven't done anything since Mr. Nelson's been here. I have done nothing before he came. I've done nothing in between. I've done nothing in the month of October. I've done nothing in any of the prior months, the whole summer. I have done nothing.
All
I've
right.
never touched
Thank you.
anything.
Thank you. Thank you.
okay.
No, I mean,
Thank you.
Thank
swear
you.
to God,
Thank you. All right, Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
I have no question.
All right, thank you. I am not going to ask any further questions at this point. I'm going to look for a motion.
I move we adopt staff's recommendation based on the photographs of the landscaping issues at the property.
Thank you.
I'll second them.
Thank you. I have a first from Director Grasha and a second from Secretary Treasurer McKenna. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Grasha,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item is 7C, request adoption of the Desert Water Agency Legislative and Policy Platform for 2025-2026. Ms. Yort.
Good morning, President Ortega and members of the board. Sorry, getting my things in order here. So what you have in packet 7C is a new and updated legislative and policy platform. So if you recall, on November 19th, I came before you with a discussion item to discuss some of the new directives that we wanted to include in the platform. And this platform would be for the 2-year state legislative session as well as the 119th Congress. So it will be spanning a 2-year cycle. However, that being said, should there be anything that is not covered within the platform, that's something that then staff can bring back to the legislative committee or the full board. But the detailed legislative platform is to allow flexibility for both staff and our state and federal advocates to move quickly on certain measures that might be going on. And so there are a few new items in there, some regarding the Colorado River negotiations, also tied into salinity. There's protections or supporting protections for passive receivers related to PFAS, and then general conservation, supporting conservation funding, specifically the USBR's Water Smart program, and other initiatives. And then there is a new directive in there as well about California water infrastructure, and that we should just be generally supportive of things related to the State Water Project, the Sites Reservoir Project, and the Delta Conveyance Project. With that, I mean, it seems I'm open to any questions. It's attached. It's a multi-page document. I will say the last page, it does not have a date. Once the board approves this document, then we will update the date on the back. And then also put this on our website. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Grasha, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Bloomer?
No questions.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna, do you have
I have
questions?
none. Carry
Okay.
on.
All right. Neither do I. So I'll look for a motion, please.
Move the staff recommendation.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a first from Director Grasha and a second from Director Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Grasha,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We can move to item 8, General Manager's Report. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. So our first item on the report was mentioned during Eddie's ceremony here. This was an honor that was awarded to the agency for our confined space rescue training program. That's quite an intensive program that Eddie has put together with the fire department and our staff. This last training occurred at the rec plant. There were 25 firefighters and 16 DWA employees that worked together to do a couple different types of rescues in confined space. As I said previously at another board meeting, that the fire department appreciates the work that we put into this, and the training that our staff has is tremendous. They're very impressed. And we do this mainly, we realize that the fire department can't be everywhere at every moment, and we have quite a bit of confined spaces within our area. And that's why our staff is trained with the proper equipment so that we can go in and do a rescue if needed, not relying wholly on just the fire department. So, but Aqua recognized this program and honored that award to us, which very impressive. The next item is Just, I'm sure all the board members know this, but Metropolitan did approve to continue participating in the DCP project. It was nearly unanimous vote, and they approved $142 million to fund the environmental planning and pre-construction costs. There are 12 of the 18 DCP participant agency boards have approved that, which is we are one of those 12. The next item is just another award recognizing the agency's low ratio for property claims. And I believe, Ms. Sines, do you receive this award? Is that how we were awarded this through your department, or?
No.
Okay.
Nothing caught on fire.
Okay. Well, that was submitted to us, and we got the award, so it's great. I think it seems like every year we get this award, so, yeah, okay. All right. No, that's okay.
Caught me a little off guard.
No, that's all right.
No, it's not provided to finance or anything, but it is for our property program. So we have several insurance lines of insurance through ACO JPIA, being our liability and property, and our workers' compensation, among others. And so this is specifically for our property program, and so we haven't had to make any property claims. So it's specific to that. So that is the reason for the low ratio. And historically, we have not had really many property claims.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Ms. Sines. Right, the next item is just a summary of our 2024 water deliveries to both Whitewater and Mission Creek subbasins. So as of December 6th, the deliveries ended. There was just over 300,000 acre-feet of water that was delivered to the Coachella Valley. 290,000 was delivered to the Whitewater Basin. Of that 290, 240 was State Water Project water, and 50,000 of it was QSA water. That is a program that CVWD has. At Mission Creek, 12,639 acre-feet of water was delivered to that facility. And as you all know, there was the 2004 settlement, which established how we would distribute the water based on production between the two basins. And that production percentage is 92% of production is in the Whitewater and 8% is in the Mission Creek. All State Water Project water is to be delivered based on that ratio. However, there will be years when we might deliver more to one basin than the other. However, we had 20 years to get that balanced, which was 2024. And we were able to now get that balanced between the two basins within the appropriate ratios. And now we will continue moving forward. We again have 20 years based on the agreement. Again, we may have years where we may deliver more in one basin than the other, but we'll have 20 years to get to ensure that we're at the appropriate ratios. Just to acknowledge that the offices will be closed here on Tuesday, December 24th, and Wednesday, December 25th for the Christmas holiday. We also will be closed on January 1st for New Year's Day. System leak data, again, 23 leaks over a couple week period. There are several streets here that are on our replacement program. Lindsay, San Jacinto, and Lugo and Davis have been awarded for our replacement pipeline project contract. And the summer of 2025 is the Ramon Road design, and summer 2026 is Cali Palo Fierro. Labor hours for those 23 leaks, just over 180 labor hours to repair those areas that were leaking. And we have our human resources meetings and activities. Ms. Hopping, a lot of staff meetings. There's a lot of Tyler work that you were performing, and some interviews for our IT manager. We are in the interview process right now. We've had over how many applications were submitted?
We received just about 92, give or take, somewhere right around there for applications. And we worked closely with Lynn McIntyre, and of course Esther and myself have been working to narrow down the candidates. And then we're probably gonna continue the process after the holidays, because Lynn's taking a vacation, so we allow that. So we gotta wait till she gets back. But we're hoping to get someone on board with our new time frame, probably February.
So it's very exciting. And for general managers, activity meetings, again, a tribal mediation, one of the leading candidates for meetings that I attend. We had some in-person meetings there at the casino hotel. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Director Grasha, do you have questions
No
for our general
questions.
manager? No?
No questions, no
Director
comments.
Bloomer?
No questions, thank you.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
I have none, thanks.
Okay, thank you. And I have none, so we can move to item 9, which is reports on meetings and director's reports on meeting and events attended on behalf of the agency. Director Grasha, could you start?
Thank you. On December 3rd, it was the first day of the Aqua Conference. Also, the Desert Water Agency Board meeting was held here at 8 o'clock in the morning, and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the Delta Conveyance Project meeting. At 6, I attended the Water for All Coalition mixer at Aqua. And then on December 4th, another day at Aqua, and the event sponsored by Best and Krieger, which had dinner with some people that I was almost an anniversary guy ran against me in 2014, so it was 10 years ago. He's now the director at the Salton Sea Authority. Had an engaging conversation with Patrick. Then December 5th, the Desert Valley Builders Association legislative meeting, and also another day of Aqua meetings. And then December 9th, a Zoom meeting with Aqua's briefing on the Bay Delta plan, and That was, looks like the notes have been chopped off here. Then 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the 9th was the Metropolitan Water District Delta Conveyance Project. That was the meeting of the Executive Committee for MWD, which was very interesting, and attended throughout the whole meeting. 5 o'clock that evening was the Boys and Girls Club of Cathedral City. And on December 10th was the Coachella Valley Water District Board meeting. And then at 2 on that afternoon, December 10th, was the final vote for the Delta Conveyance Project at Metropolitan Water District. And as the general manager pointed out, it was almost unanimous. There was one guy that couldn't get himself to do it, I guess. I think he thought he had was going to have more support, but by the end of the meeting, he was apologizing for not voting in support of it. It was really quite remarkable to watch him turn like a worm in the apple. It was fascinating. And then the December 11th was the Public Affairs and Conservation Committee meeting. And oh, I see what, yeah. At 11:30 here, after the Conservation Committee meeting, I had a training on how to operate the new system for our keeping track of our payroll. Then on December 12th was with Janet Williams, and that was our strategic plan for Desert Water Agency meeting. Then on December 13th was the Desert Water Agency IT training. And then on the 14th was the Christmas party, which was very nice. And I apologize profusely for eating before I was supposed to, but the guy at the hotel was so proud of himself getting that spread out. He turned around and said, "Dinner is served." And I got up thinking, okay. And I went right in line. I didn't stop to think that we were supposed to wait for Steve to tell us that dinner was served. So I had dinner 20 minutes before the rest of you. So sorry.
No,
Sorry about
I'm
that.
just glad you enjoyed that.
I did. And December 17th is right now. So that's a full report, I think. And I apologize for not, but I had a busy weekend and I wasn't able to make a cleaner version of that report. So you get most everything on the calendar. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Director Bloomer.
Okay, December 3rd and 4th was the Aqua Conference in Palm Desert, and I think the most interesting items that I attended were there was a presentation on cloud seeding from somebody that wants to do it just on the other side of the San Jacinto Mountains. So he was interested in coming and making a presentation to our board on how that may affect us. And then also there was a DCP update that was right before the Region 9 meeting that was interested. I think everyone was really in anticipation of what how Met was going to vote, so there was a lot of speculation on, how things were going to go. So, and I also did watch both of those metropolitan meetings. And there was a tribal mediation meeting on December 9th. And then the night of December 9th was Cathedral City Boys and Girls Club affair at the Air Museum, which was very nice. And then on Saturday, the DWA holiday party. So that is it.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
I forgot to report at the last meeting that I attended a strategic plan ad hoc committee meeting on December 2nd. I went to the Colorado River Water Users Association convention on December 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. The keynote speaker was Kevin Fedarko. He was the other person that went through the Grand Canyon on foot with Pete McBride. And it was fascinating to hear the rather different and darker version of events from him, but quite an achievement for those guys. I noticed quite a bit of dissonance between the Colorado River upper basin states and lower basin states. Last year, they made a joint presentation. This year, separate presentations, and in each of which they sniped considerably at each other. So it seems to me they've moved further apart in intervening year. I do think that J.B. Hamby of IID made a really good case for this, California's allotment. So we wait and see on that one. I don't think they'll solve that by 2026, though. IID had a booth in the exhibit hall, and they had the chutzpah to bring 2 bales of alfalfa, which, you know, got my attention. Yeah. I had a lively discussion with Karen Eugenio, who's one of their board members and is a farmer. And she happily defended the practice of selling water to farmers for $20 an acre foot and to San Diego for $500 an acre foot. Although a representative from Escondido told me it was actually much more expensive than that. North American, Native American tribes were very well represented at the convention and made a very compelling case for their rights, following up from the recent Supreme Court decision in Navajo Nation versus Arizona. And some of them seem very innovative in conservation and solar energy. The Gila River Indian community, governor was there, Stephen Rowe Lewis, and I was quite impressed by what they're doing. Okay, moving on. December 11th, I attended a Palm Springs Chamber of Commerce ribbon cutting. I don't go to those much, but this one was Desert X. And I'm a big fan of Desert X, and they're coming back next year. I mentioned to them that maybe they should talk to us about sponsorship. You know, they bring a lot of people and business to the valley. So, and I also re-aired my beef with them about handicap access, which is very, very poor at that event. I promised I would mention Las Palmas Brewing because the 2 owners of that were there, and they said they like the water quality in Palm Springs. So they turn water into beer. Water into beer is quite an amazing thing, but that's what they do. So there's the mention I promised them. December 12th, I attended Desert Hot Springs City Council, where Mayor Mattis was sworn in for his final 4-year term. Council members Pitts and Voss were sworn in, and council members Betts and Nunez left the council after 17 years and 4 years, respectively. December 14th, I went to the Christmas party, and in your defense, we were practically ordered to eat, especially the prime rib. So, yeah, we jumped the gun on that, but it was excellent. Yesterday, I attended the Mission Springs Water District board meeting, and I have separate notes on that, which have disappeared. They continued, they voted to continue with President Sewell will continue. It should just be Ivan, it says Martin here. Director Griffith was also sworn in for another term as vice president. They produced this excellent calendar, I gotta say, and I've got copies for you all, with art from school kids in Desert Hot Springs. And the January one, which was the winner, says, "Save water so water can save you." And I think you should trademark that. That's really good. They had a briefing on chromium-6, and they're having a public meeting on that today at 5 o'clock. And I really applaud the idea that they're working very openly and with the public on that issue. It's a significant issue for them. That's all I have on them. And that's all I have on meetings. Thanks.
All right, thank you. So I also attended Aqua meetings on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. The highlights for me would be Region 9's program on farming, which took a little bit of a different turn than some of the other panels that are often at these conferences related to agriculture, in the sense of focusing more on new technologies, innovations, and new types of crops that could be grown here in California during times of drought and less water use. So that was a little bit more positive than sometimes those panels tend to be. There was also a program which I always really enjoy at Aqua every year, and also CSDA does something very similar of innovative, an awards program for innovation in the industry. Typically, they have something that has to do with technology, but the one that really the program that I really thought was quite interesting was the San Gregorio Pass Water Agency's GAP funding program. So just to the west of us, where they have a lot of small agencies that operate within their boundaries, quite small water agencies, for example, maybe only 1,000 connections or 2,000 connections, don't have a lot of staff, don't have a lot of bandwidth. And I think this one in particular that started this program was the Cabazon Authority that had received a $3 million grant and was basically going to give the money back because they didn't have the skill set and the people to actually make it happen. And so, and also didn't have the reserve funding to, because of course, typically these things are paid afterward, after the expenses have been made. And so the general manager for that agency, for San Gregorio, came up with an idea of, hey, we have this money in reserve. Why couldn't we help cover the cost of their upfront expenses and also provide them some technical support so that they can actually take advantage of that grant, and then they can pay us back over time. And so they've actually turned that into a program now. I'm not in speaking about it with at lunch right after that program, turns out that we also have a couple of agencies like that within our boundaries that we have very little or have had not had a lot of interaction with, but where this might be something that going forward we could investigate with them. And these, I think, Mr. Tate said that there are two in the Pinyon Pines neighborhood. There may be others as well, but those are the two that came to mind that have actually, in the past, there have been times where they have reached out to us for help. So this might be something to sort of think about going forward. Again, very small agencies, very few connections, but still in need of some support. So I really, that was a really nice program. And there was, of course, a program I attended on the sort of how does water conservation pencil out. There were, I think a lot of us were there at that particular meeting, if I recall. And just as an aside, I really appreciated having a lot of staff people at this particular conference. It was good to see their involvement and show them that there are a lot of things going on at these conferences that probably could benefit them as far as their own professional development. But that was, I don't know that we learned a whole lot more from that particular program that we already didn't know, but the sort of takeaway is, the takeaways that I had were that there has to be some sort of federal and state assistance for low-income ratepayers in this attempt to save water across the state, because that's where a lot of the burden is going to fall. One thing I appreciated about that particular panel is that they had a smaller water agency, smaller than we are, for the city of Glendora, and some of the things that they're up against, I think, kind of resonate a lot with what this agency has to do with in terms of aging infrastructure, implementing an AMI program, dealing with disadvantaged communities. So those were the big takeaways for Aqua. I also had, as Director Bloomer, I had the oath of office last Tuesday, so that we could continue to participate in this role. We're still official, or official again. And then there was, as Director Grasha mentioned, on Wednesday last week, there was the Public Affairs and Conservation meeting. Thursday was executive committee. Friday, I actually attended spent the morning in Riverside with the Riverside County Water Task Force, which is a non-compensable event. Most of the time they do their programs virtually, but I guess once a year they do them in person. And this one was hosted by Western in the city of Riverside we started at their location, but actually went on a tour of 2 of Metropolitan's facilities from that point. A water treatment plant, the Mills treatment plant, which is located in the city of Riverside. And then the really interesting part for me was going to Lake Matthews, which is the terminus for the Colorado River Aqueduct, which is just south of the city of Riverside. I should have not been surprised, but it's massive. It makes sense that it is so large. It looked quite full at this point. We went to a lookout point to oversee the entire, river reservoir system from above. Got some explanation about how they actually bring water out of the reservoir. Well, they bring it in and how they bring it out, and then went to their outtake forebay, as they referred to it as, where it was a lot of water moving very, very fast. It was quite impressive. And then afterward, we went back to Western for lunch in the boardroom with a panel on solutions for California's water future. And there are 3 different speakers that had provided some of their personal and professional insights on what can we do going forward. And really the emphasis, I think, of the Riverside County Water Task Force is to look for regional solutions and act as a regional body in some respect, particularly when dealing with legislation and regulation. Then from there, I hightailed it back to Palm Springs in time for my meeting with the virtual meeting regarding the strategic plan. Of course, the party that was already mentioned on Saturday, which was quite fun. And then yesterday, the cybersecurity training. And with that, I'll end my remarks about meetings and events, and we can move to item 10, which is director's comments and requests. And Mr. Grasha, Director Grasha.
I don't have any comments or any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Bloomer.
No comments or requests, thanks.
Okay, Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
Oh dear. I hope you permit me to reminisce for a little bit. I received a certificate of distinction from the Institution of Civil Engineers. Very handsome document. And in the cover letter, they talk about climate emergency is the responsibility of engineers to deal with. But I was snapped back to 1974 when I joined that institution. I became a professional engineer 5 years later. And I remembered I was working on designing a core pond for nuclear reactors from Polaris submarines, and I was using a slide rule to do it. And at that time, it was conventional wisdom that we were heading into a new ice age. I mean, it had just been basically the consensus of meteorologists. We didn't have climate scientists in those days. But by 1974, they had reached a consensus that 150 years of steadily declining temperature would continue, and they were forecasting. You could read this in Newsweek or Time or the New York Times from 1974. You know, the climate emergency then was we're going to be too cold. And 1975 came along, and in Europe had the hottest, driest summer for 500 years. So that was the sort of inflection point in climate. And it really makes me, well, focus even more on the challenges we have ahead of us. Today, really, I want to talk about the cost of electricity. The general manager was kind enough to send me copies of electricity bills, and I picked well 43 because it's way out there along Highway 111 next to the replenishment facility. In 2019, that facility used 13,000 kilowatt hours of electricity in a month, July 2019, and it cost in total $2,300, about 22 cents a kilowatt hour on average. This year, it used slightly less, 12,000 kilowatt hours, and it costs $7,300, or 59.7 cents a kilowatt hour on average. So we've had an increase of 270% in 5 years. And I think there's worse ahead of us. If you look at how Southern California Edison is really gaming the PUC system, transferring all their costs to distribution. And you and I saw that they don't generally make a lot of electricity themselves anymore. The making of electricity is getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. At some points of the day, electricity is being given away from California to other states because we don't need it, and the producers are selling it for next to nothing. In fact, less than nothing sometimes when it's wind energy and there's a federal subsidy for it. They will give it to Edison for nothing, or they will pay Edison to take it so the federal subsidy isn't lost. So we have this situation where the generation cost of energy is going lower and lower, as it should, because it falls on our heads for free 12 hours a day. But we will never benefit from that savings if we rely on Edison to distribute it, because they are pushing up and up and up the cost basis of distribution. So that makes me think. And a second issue really is there is a project in the Mojave, a project in the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power called the ELAND project, which has contracted to sell electricity to the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power for 3.9 cents a kilowatt hour. And that price will not escalate for 25 years. It's a solar battery combination. Phase one was $1 billion. The investors put up that money, and Los Angeles adopted a power purchase agreement. They had no risk at all. A phase two is already underway, another $1 billion, this time funded by venture capitalists from the Bay Area. At the present time, phase two is under construction. They have 400 workers installing 10,000 panels a day. That's like one every 30 seconds. And they expect to make money at that price. So when you look at the 60 cents we're paying today, it could be $1 in the next 5 years. Well, let's look at it this way. That's $7,300 bill. It would be $489 at the price that DWP is getting. So it's not easy, and the general manager and I have talked about this. It's exceedingly difficult, perhaps, but we need to start a process of investigating how we can accomplish this net zero carbon dioxide and cost savings at the same time. And I think, as I said before, this board should then commit to achieving carbon dioxide net zero by, fill in the date. I'd like the staff to try and figure that out. Please don't make it 2045, but we should start looking at it. It's time we got going on this. It's time it was one of our priorities, because time is the enemy here as these rates from Edison continue to go up, while the cost of generating continues to go down. So I'm going to ask the executive committee to put this on the agenda for January 7th, that we discuss this as a board, what sort of direction we should give the staff, what sort of objective we should have. As I said in an earlier meeting, this is urgent. Tomorrow is today. We are confronted by the fierce urgency of now. That's it.
Thank you. All right, I have no further comments other than to, before we move into closed session, which I'd like to do at 10 o'clock, to acknowledge that this is our last board meeting of the year and that we will not be meeting again for 3 weeks, and wishing our staff and our constituents and customers, as well as my fellow board members, a great holiday season until we meet again. Well, thank you. Back into open session. I can report that no reportable action was taken while we were in closed session. And with that, we can adjourn this meeting. Thank you.